Introduction to Aurora Warriors. On this day, the peaceful Earth has ushered in unprecedented changes. Unknown ethnic groups emerge, and the whole world falls bloody slaughter, merciless devastation faced with despair like an endless abyss. Are you willing to hide in the dark and be a mouse struggling to survive without seeing the sun, still willing to bow down and be a dog enslaved and begging for mercy? Or it could be picking up weapons, facing new worlds, new rules, and fierce enemies head-on with blood, life, and courage. Compose a hymn to the immortality of humanity, and in the darkness, pursue the aurora of that miracle. Completed works such as Reincarnation of Extreme Fist and Invincible Starting from the Ultimate Fist Technique. Chapter 1. Soldier Strike Descendants. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Guangjiang City, Golden Scale Garden. This is a small two-story detached villa area, with each household covering an area of about 200 square meters. It has a Chinese garden style, but the overall building facilities and green areas of the community give a sense of old age. After all, this villa community was built about 20 years ago and cannot escape the baptism of time and frost. The living room on the first floor of room 302 in Area A has been demolished by the owner, who has removed all the unnecessary walls and facilities in the design, making the space appear very spacious. The interior decoration is simple, and household items only occupy a very small part. Moreover, the owner seems to be not interested in these things, and has a practical art style of, just use them, make do if not. Half of the remaining space is the fitness area, with all kinds of equipment available and neatly arranged, even the dumbbell pads wiped spotlessly. The other half is covered with combat cushions on the ground, and a complete set of pure black weapon protection equipment is hung on the walls. On the nearby weapon rack, there are also many wooden and iron uncut weapons neatly arranged. Knives, guns, swords, sticks, hammers. In a corner of the room, there is a shrine where the four ancient black characters, Shanwu Jue, are enshrined, rather than the gods and Buddhas of the heavens. The strokes of the characters are extremely sharp, not like those written with a brush, but more like the shapes cut with a long sword. At this moment, a young man in casual clothes was standing in front of the altar. This man has sharp short hair, a broad and heavy face, eyebrows and eyes that ring the eye, and bright and radiant eyes. Although his facial features may not be handsome overall, he has a strong and masculine temperament. He is tall and has broad and thick shoulder blades like two ancient architectural lattice doors. His arms are strong and slender, his palms are wide, and his 10 fingers have distinct joints. Moreover, although his shoulders are wide, his body shape is not an inverted triangle, and his waist and abdomen do not appear slender, but rather very sturdy. Wide shoulders, long arms, bucket waist. Unlike the pursuit of physical beauty in fitness and bodybuilding, this person's physique can truly be called tall and robust, with a tiger back and a bare waist. Even if they just stand quietly, ordinary people in front of them will feel a strong sense of oppression. Zhang Qingguang, 25 years old, standing 1.92 meters tall, with a shoulder width of 65 centimeters, arms nearly 2 meters wide, and a weight of approximately 110 kilograms, is a fan of military strikes and a descendant of traditional Chinese martial arts techniques. He held 3 incense sticks and bowed 3 times to the calligraphy plaque on the altar that read, Shanwu Jue. Master, today is the 10th year of my disciple's entry. I am not talented and have not yet fully understood the mystery of Jingzhe. However, although I have not been able to enter the realm of swordsmanship, I am fortunate to have met 3 or 5 friends. I am currently preparing to establish a Shanwu soldier strike hall, hoping to promote the Mingguang swordsmanship that has been passed down. Nowadays, the country is peaceful, and martial arts are no longer needed to protect the country and stabilize the 4 corners. However, although the times have changed, the skills passed down by our ancestors, as well as the courage and spirit of martial arts, should not be lost in history. At this time, we should inspire the world and hope that our Master, with the spirit of heaven, can bless the prosperity of our martial arts. Zhang Qingguang whispered to himself and inserted 3 sticks of incense in his hand onto the incense burner. Then, he turned around and left the altar, sat down in front of the sofa in the hall, and picked up his phone from the coffee table. The screensaver lights up and a series of chat software prompt sounds flash on the screen. Unlock the screen, open the chat app, and a chat group message with only 6 people scrolls through. The name of the chat group is very long. 8 Wilderness, for extremes, only I respect heaven and earth. Seeing this group name, Zhang Qingguang's mind was immediately filled with black lines, and he clicked on the group chat to check the unread records. Little Birdiran. Who changed the group name? It's not me, said the proud Red Lotus Grand Master of the Divine Cha Kuang Dao Xinlei. The name is the same length, we solved the case. Little Birdiran said, okay, I hate dishonest men the most. I'll come see you for a solo practice later. This time, I won't use a soft rubber hammer, but a solid wood hammer. My arm circumference seems to have increased by another centimeter recently, so I'll give it a try. Ah who? Brother Qian, haven't you been beaten enough by Sister Zhao last time? Do you have any special hobbies? Shen Cha Kuang Dao, the proud Red Lotus Grand Master, said, I am fearless. Recently, I have been studying classics day and night, and have come up with a series of killing moves, which happen to bring shame to the front. As the saying goes, what new series have you watched again? Are you awesome or not? Shensha Guangdao, the proud Red Lotus Grand Master, said, bold, this pure love god of war. Zhang Qingguang watched as a few people in the group were busy chatting, but none of them went to change the group name back. He couldn't help but feel a bit helpless and had to take action to change the group name back to Shangu Soldier Strike Hall Preparation Group. The few people in the group are his partners, all of whom are inheritors of various ancient martial arts that he has met in Guangjiang City over the years. Zhang Qingguang's move to change the group name caught the attention of everyone in the group. Little Birdiran said, at Giant of Light, the actual combat venue of the venue has been decorated. We plan to try it out in the venue today. When are you available? The Giant of Light. After completing daily training, you can go over. As the saying goes, I have to invigilate in the morning and can only go there in the afternoon. The Giant of Light. Then let's go together at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Seeing everyone saying hello and continuing to chat, Zhang Qingguang smiled slightly and exited the chat app. He got up and walked up to the second floor. Before reaching a room, he opened the door. The room was dimly lit with no windows, no furniture, and was empty. There was only a knife rack standing in front of the wall opposite the door, and a cattail was placed on the ground in the center. As the door opens and light shines in, thick wallpaper can be seen sticking to the walls of the room, seemingly a type of soundproofing material. This is a quiet room for meditation. Zhang Qingguang walked into the room and casually closed the door, ready to start his daily training. And just as Zhang Qingguang walked into the quiet room and closed the door to the Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. The outside world is beginning to undergo unprecedented changes. Guangjiang City, Binjiang Road. It is now early morning, during the rush hour to work. The streets are bustling with cars and crowds, and everyone is in a hurry, as if racing against time. Beside the traffic lights, a young traffic police officer is constantly directing traffic. Although it is already late autumn and the temperature is not high, the traffic on the street, coupled with high-intensity command, makes sweat beads appear on the forehead of the young traffic police officer. Squeak. Suddenly, for some unknown reason, the vehicles on the street braked suddenly, and some rear cars were unable to dodge, resulting in collisions and numerous rear-end collisions, causing chaos on the street. Someone probe out to check the situation, a group of angry people shouted and cursed loudly. The young traffic police officer was sweating profusely, frowning, and strode towards the cars parked in front of the traffic lights. He could see clearly that the green light had just changed, and all the vehicles had started. It was because some of the vehicles in front of him suddenly stopped that the accident occurred. "What is your situation?" He walked to the driver's seat of one of the cars and knocked on the window to inquire, but soon he realized something was wrong. The driver seemed to have overlooked his inquiry and his expression appeared somewhat dull, constantly looking ahead. The young traffic police officer looked in the direction of the driver's line of sight, not knowing why. Later, he also stood there dumbfounded. Not only him, but also all pedestrians and vehicles on the street stopped. The noisy city fell into a eerie silence in an instant, and everyone looked in a certain direction in the sky. There, the sky was like a torn curtain, with a narrow and deep crack appearing, slowly expanding. "Oh my God, it's cracked open." Chapter 2. Weak Gunshots. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Earth has existed for billions of years, but human civilization has only been established in just a few thousand years. Compared to the boundless universe and its long lifespan, it is only a very brief moment, and the rise of science is even shorter, only a few hundred years. We cannot determine whether the theorems and formulas observed in this short period of time are true, or whether they are just the tides of the vast universe fluctuating in an instant. Just as at this moment, something beyond human understanding has happened, a huge rift stretches across the sky, and within it lies darkness, like an bottomless abyss, deep and mysterious. Is the sky splitting open? This inexplicable magical phenomenon seems to possess special magic, and human natural curiosity is most easily attracted to this type of phenomenon. Nowadays, it is a stable and peaceful society, where war and bloodshed have left for too long. Everyone is like a flower in a greenhouse, almost losing all the alertness instincts of being a living organism. Faced with such inexplicable phenomena, people did not want to escape, but stopped one after another. Many took out their phones, turned on the photography function, and took a fierce photo of the cracks in the sky. Many people were still excitedly discussing. "Damn it, what exactly is this thing? Is it a mirage? But it's a bit too clear, and from the appearance, how big is this thing? Several tens of kilometers. Isn't it the legendary space crack? Is it because the country is conducting research on some secret weapon that accidentally blew out the space crack? It doesn't seem like a celestial phenomenon, does it? Anyway, hurry up and take a picture and upload a certain sound. Maybe you can still grab a wave of traffic." The people on the street were excitedly discussing, but in the next moment, something unexpected happened to them. Why does my phone show low battery? I was fully charged when I went out. Wait, why did it shut down? It's broken. Why did my car stall? The tablet is also out of battery. What's the situation? The traffic lights in front are no longer on, and the LED screen in front of the nearby supermarket gate is also off. Is it because that crack appeared, which brought electromagnetic pulses and caused the equipment to malfunction? Nonsense. Electromagnetic pulses shouldn't make my motorcycle pedal unable to start fire, right? Soon, everyone realized something was wrong. The surrounding area was almost completely powered off at the same time, and all electronic devices malfunctioned. Even motorcycles could not be started by manual foot ignition. This caused quite a stir among everyone. The young traffic police have never seen such a scene before. At this moment, some do not know what to do. They take out their walkie-talkies, only to find that they have also lost power and cannot communicate. Everyone, calm down first. We are already trying to find a way to contact our superiors, and we will soon know the reason. Don't panic, stand still, avoid trampling, follow our arrangements, and leave the street in an orderly manner. Fortunately, there was a police station near the street, and the police officers appeared in time, holding 2 A4 paper rolls of big horns in their hands, shouting to various parts of the street. This made the agitated crowd a little more calm, not continuing to stir, but standing in place waiting for arrangements. However, at this moment, the mutation occurred again. The huge crack in the sky seemed to vibrate slightly, and then a large number of dense black spots spewed out from the crack, like falling raindrops, passing through the air in parabolic lines and falling towards the ground. Part of it fell onto the street where young traffic police and others were located. As the black dots approached, everyone could vaguely see that they were huge spherical objects with a diameter of at least 3 meters. Run! It's not a joke to be hit by such an unknown object falling from a high altitude. At this moment, everyone suddenly realized the danger was coming and could no longer care about order. They all screamed and fled, scattering from the center of the street, searching for cover nearby. Many people fell while fleeing, being trampled by people behind them, making screams of pain, blood flowing out, and the streets were in chaos. Dong! 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 Accompanied by a series of dull impact sounds, the nearly circular black spheres fell down, leaving astonishing depressions on the cement floor and vehicles. The young traffic police officer has good eyesight. He hid under a big tree in the nearby green belt and looked at the falling black ball. He found that the black ball seemed not to be made of metal, but rather like the keratin of some kind of organism or the shell of an insect. The people hiding under the buildings and shelters around also had the courage to poke their heads out and look at the black ball. Click. Click. I don't know if it was due to the violent impact, but cracks began to appear on these black balls. Pop. Under the gaze of everyone, the black balls that fell on the street burst apart in unison, splashing with some disgusting black-purple viscous liquid inside the balls, revealing what was wrapped in them. That's a black-purple wriggling meatball. No. The meatball quickly disintegrated, and everyone clearly saw that it was not a meatball at all, but an unknown humanoid creature that only curled up and hugged in a ball. When these creatures stretched out, everyone could finally see their full appearance. The skin of these monsters is black-purple, rough like cowhide, with an average height of at least 2 meters or more. Their physique is incredibly robust, and in front of ordinary people, they look like giants. Their faces are ferocious like the demon Raksha, as if they have crawled out of hell. The monster was wearing unknown material skirts and pants, with its upper body exposed and holding a long strip of leather-wrapped object in its hand. Brush. After the monsters stood up one by one, they pulled out these elongated objects, and surprisingly, the handles were pale in color, as if they were weapons made of some kind of bone that resembled large knives. Within each black sphere, at least 3 to 5 black monsters appear, and within a 100-meter radius of the area where the young traffic police are located, at least 30 or more monsters appear. One of the monsters happened to appear next to a young man dressed in checkered clothes, who was trampled on while fleeing and was struggling on the ground. His fierce eyes showed a bloodthirsty and joyful expression. Brush. It swung its bone knife and struck the young man's neck. In an instant, blood splattered and dyed a large area red. The young man's head detached from his body and rolled on the ground, his eyes wide open and full of disbelief. In times of peace, even blood cannot be red, and no one has witnessed such a bloody scene. After a brief blank in their minds, the people around them let out piercing screams. Monster. Monster killed. Aliens. Aliens have invaded Earth. What the hell are these things? Dot. The black and purple monsters on the street were attracted by the sounds around them, and their living flesh and blood ignited their brutal ferocity. They formed a group of 3 and quickly rushed towards the buildings and shopping malls around the street. Despite their large bodies, they ran very quickly over short distances. In just 10 seconds, screams and screams began to spread around, and the peaceful and beautiful streets began to be stained red with splattered blood. Strong and wielding sharp weapons, this bloodthirsty and savage monster is like an invincible demon to humans who have long forgotten their instinct to fight wild beasts in peace. A crowd 10 times the number of monsters was crushed and screamed as they fled. The order of civilization has been replaced by brutal slaughter. Damn monster. In the nearby police station, the officers urgently took out their firearms, looked at the surrounding situation, and ran against the fleeing crowd. Their eyes were red, and they gritted their teeth and fired at the black monster. In times of crisis, there are still people going upstream. Ordinary people can escape, but they cannot. They have a mission on their shoulders that they have to take on. Bang! 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 The police officers opened fire one after another and searched for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, but they immediately noticed the abnormality. The gunfire was very strange, no longer as loud as usual, almost indistinguishable from the sound of firecrackers, and the recoil was surprisingly light. The bullet, which should have had the power to penetrate all bodily tissues, now appeared soft and powerless, more like a stone shot from a slingshot, and its movement could be caught with the naked eye. The bullet hit the chest of an oncoming monster and was unexpectedly bounced open by its rough cowhide-like skin, falling onto the ground with a crisp sound. Not just a gun, but all firearms have experienced the same situation. The dense firepower cannot even stop the monster's footsteps. All the police officers were stunned, their brains blank. A weak gunshot. With the development of technology, thermal weapons have become the strongest weapon that humans rely on to dominate, allowing humans to easily destroy all carbon-based life forms on Earth. No one can imagine how much combat power can humans still have after losing this weapon. Just as the police officers were stunned, the tall monster had already rushed towards them. The shaking ground, the terrifying grin, the pungent smell, the howling wind, the white bone blades constantly magnifying in the pupils, and the piercing chill brought by the failure of thermal weapons. This is the scene they saw at the last moment of their lives. And the same scene not only appears in Guangjiang City, but also in various parts of the world. In every area above, the same cracks appear, and the same monsters fall. Humans face the same despair. The global sky seems to have a hint of blood at this moment. The world has completely collapsed. Chapter 3. Encountering Attacks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Golden Scale Garden, Room 302, Area A. At this time, Zhang Qingguang was unaware of the changes in the world. He was in a quiet room, with soundproofing materials all over the walls. If it weren't for intense external vibrations, he wouldn't have noticed the usual noise. After the door closed, the room fell into darkness and was silent. If an ordinary person were in this environment, they might have lost their sense of direction, but Zhang Qingguang could still see things. His eyes, even in the darkness, flickered with an inexplicable faint light. This is the skill he has developed through years of practicing the bright light consciousness saber technique. Mingguang Jue knife technique, a two-handed sword technique, originated during the Ming dynasty and evolved from the Xinyo knife technique created by the famous Ming dynasty anti-Japanese general Qi Jiguang. It is said that after the dissolution of the Qi family army in the past, some skilled swordsmen drifted to the common people, and their inheritance changed. As later generations no longer frequently went to the battlefield, they evolved corresponding mental determination training methods, gradually changing the Xinyo swordsmanship into its current form. In today's Mingguang swordsmanship, there is the method of 3 lights refining gods. Long-term practice can make practitioners of Mingguang swordsmanship have amazing eyesight, able to see things at night, and when facing enemies, their eyes are like scorching sun, directly capturing the heart and taking the lead. As the saying goes, the 3 lights refine the spirit, and the golden eyes capture the enemy. Nowadays, Zhang Qingguang has completed the training of splitting the sun in Mingguang swordsmanship. The swordsmanship can be said to be impressive, and regardless of physical fitness, various reactions and swordsmanship techniques can already compare to the elite of ancient battles. That is to say, the ancient soldiers hit the so-called 100 refinements realm. At this point, if one wants to further their swordsmanship, they no longer need to practice their skills hard, but rather need a bit of insight. Climbing and fighting on the battlefield, never dying in 100 battles, can be called the elite of the army. But only by mastering that bit of spirituality can one truly stand out and become a top expert in the military. There is no one among them, and if one masters military tactics, they can become a generation of fierce generals. My body is like spring thunder, my heart is like a drizzle, the bright light shines through, and in an instant, I am startled by insects. This is also the goal of Zhang Qinguang's cultivation today. He walked to the knife rack in the room and took off a surprisingly long knife that was placed on it. Zheng. The long sword emerged from the body, and a silver light suddenly appeared. Even in the darkness, a faint light was produced. This two-handed long sword is called Zhaoshan and has a Ming style. The blade length is about 120 centimeters, the handle length is about 60 centimeters, and the total length of the knife is 180 centimeters. The blade face is nearly 5 centimeters wide, with blood grooves. The blade is polished extremely sharp, and its total weight reaches a terrifying 10 pounds and 7 taels, almost twice the weight of the standard Ming long sword on the market. Most people find it difficult to dance. The blade is made of special steel, which is as smooth as a mirror. The handle is made of carbon fiber and engraved with cloud patterns. This blade follows practical principles, and is tailored for Zhang Qinguang in terms of center of gravity and length. Of course, the price is not cheap either. In order to forge this long sword, Zhang Qinguang spent most of the savings he had earned from operating self-media over the years. However, although entirely crafted for practical use, the heart-taking knife is ultimately just a collectible. In modern society, public security is good and the rule of law is perfect. This kind of long sword can only be collected and played with by oneself. If it appears on the street, Zhang Qinguang may have to go in and drink tea for a few days. In the era of hot weapons, the combat skills of cold weapons have gradually been forgotten by the public. The situation of unarmed combat is relatively good. With the rise of Sanda, boxing, and unrestricted fighting, it is still developing and inheriting, and has professional international competitions that have received widespread attention. But military combat is not enough. It is difficult to integrate a unified scoring and evaluation system for a variety of weapons, so it is also difficult to develop professional international competitions. Only some events that are easy to regulate, such as fencing, have developed well, while other events are only developed by some enthusiasts. After all, the fundamental significance of the birth of military strikes lies in killing opponents. There are no rules on the battlefield, and life and death are the outcome, which is difficult to replicate in reality. In fact, the true essence of Donghua's traditional martial arts lies in the technique of military strikes. Almost all well-known boxing techniques have evolved from weapons, and the ultimate goal of all postures is to serve weapons. No matter how hard the fist is, it cannot stop the kitchen knife. But now, with all the skills, there is no real place for them to be used. Zhang Qinguang also felt helpless about the current situation of traditional military strikes. He didn't have a better way to deal with it, but he also felt that some good things from his ancestors should not be forgotten by history. Therefore, he could only operate through self-media, gather a group of like-minded people, and prepare to establish the Shangwu Military Strike Museum, hoping to improve his own skills in this way and promote what he learned. He held a heart-shaped knife in his hand and sat cross-legged on the futon in the center of the room, placing the long knife across his leg, slowly closing his eyes and entering a state of meditation. He needs to be completely calm and imagine himself in the darkness, creating a beam of light. As time passed, just as his mind was about to completely calm down. Dong! Dong dong! The whole room suddenly shook continuously a few times, waking him up from a state of calm. What's going on? An earthquake. Zhang Qinguang furrowed his brow slightly. The next moment. Dong! 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 Bang! Another violent vibration came, accompanied by the sensation of heavy objects collapsing, and Zhang Qinguang finally realized something was wrong. It's not an earthquake, this kind of vibration seems to be man-made. What is hitting your own walls or doors? He was instantly alert, and with a flick of his body, he stood up from the ground, tightly holding the heart-shaped knife in his hand. He gently opened the door of the quiet room and suddenly heard a series of heavy footsteps and an inexplicable gasp coming from downstairs. Thief. Bandits. Which thief or robber would make such a big commotion when they come knocking, and it's still in broad daylight? Do you want to have 3 meals a day, including food and accommodation? Zhang Qingguang's heart became even more puzzled. Clack. Clack. The sound of flipping boxes and cabinets kept coming from downstairs, and Zhang Qingguang remained vigilant. He carried his heart-shaped knife behind him and slowly leaned towards the staircase, looking towards the first floor through the gap between the stairs. In an instant, his pupils suddenly contracted and his brain had a brief blank. He saw 2 humanoid creatures with dark purple skin and sturdy physique, resembling ghosts crawling out of hell, searching in the hall with white bone knives. They swung their bone knives, destroying the sofa, weapon rack, and even the altar with the inscription, Shanwu Jue, causing chaos in the room. On the bodies of these monsters and on the bone knives in their hands, one can see bloodstains of crimson that have not completely dried up. Gone. What the hell is this? Suddenly facing this unknown creature, it was as if the plot from a movie had entered reality, leaving everyone confused. Is there any secret laboratory nearby? Have the experimental subjects escaped? Zhang Qingguang's face twitched, suppressing his breathing and heartbeat, and controlling his steps to slowly retreat. Although he has practiced the art of warfare for many years, living in a stable modern society, he has not experienced real life and death battles. As a normal person, facing this unknown monster with unknown details, he has no interest in risking his own life, so his first thought is to run. The windows of the rooms on the second floor were not equipped with anti-theft nets, and with a height of only 5 or 6 meters, he had no problem with his skills. This kind of biochemical crisis was still left to the police uncle or soldiers holding hot weapons to handle. He quickly entered the master bedroom and gently closed the door, preparing to approach the balcony of the master bedroom to check the outside situation. Wow! Wow! At that moment, he heard a little boy crying, accompanied by a piercing scream. He leaned against the dark corner of the wall and saw another villa not far away. A young woman holding a 7 or 8-year-old boy ran out of the house in panic, but soon caught the attention of the black and purple monsters in the surrounding streets and buildings. The 3 monsters rushed up at an extremely fast speed and caught the rushing young woman. One of the monsters, amidst the woman's screams of panic and despair, pulled out the child in her arms and lifted it high above her head with its ankle. "Mom! Mom!" The little boy cried in terror, but the monster showed no mercy. It suddenly shook its hand and smashed the little boy's body heavily towards the ground. Pop! Even though they were far apart, Zhang Qingguang still heard the bone and flesh explosion that made his scalp tingle. The little boy's body was blurry with blood and flesh, and he softened into a ball. In an instant, there was no sound. The woman screamed, her body suddenly softened, as if unable to withstand the blow, and she fainted. She looked for one of the monsters from Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com to pick her up, as if carrying prey, and walked towards the outside of the community. Animal. Upon seeing this scene, Zhang Qingguang felt his eyes engorged with blood, tightly holding the heart-shaped knife in his hand, and his eyes were about to crack. He knows the family on the second floor next to him, a young family of 3, all of whom are very nice people. The male owner runs his own small company, the hostess is very beautiful and gentle. She used to be a pastry chef. Now she takes care of her baby at home full time. She often makes some small dim sum to give to neighbors nearby. Zhang Qingguang has tasted them several times, and they taste pretty good. The little boy is very lively and polite. Every time he meets him, he politely waves his hand and says hello to his uncle. He also looks up and timidly asks Zhang Qingguang if he can grow as tall as him in the future. At this moment, he really wanted to jump down and save people, beheading those animals, but unfortunately, he couldn't do it. Each monster has a body size of over 2 meters, is sturdy, carries weapons, and has a large number. Once there is a commotion, at least 10 or more monsters will surround it. He is a martial arts enthusiast and a descendant of ancient martial arts, but he is just an ordinary person, not a superhero. Now he is in dire straits, and rescuing someone is almost a sure death. You cannot jump directly, otherwise there will be chaos and you will inevitably be surrounded by monsters. Zhang Qingguang restrained his anger and palpitations in his heart, forced himself to calm down, and began to think about the escape plan. The street in the direction of the master bedroom doesn't look good. Try changing the window direction of the second bedroom. He immediately took action, left the window, and prepared to walk to another room. However, the next moment, his body suddenly snapped. He heard the muffled sound of footsteps step by step, stepping on the stairs. The two monsters in the hall are coming up. Chapter 4. Life and Death Battle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Upon hearing the heavy footsteps coming from the staircase, Zhang Qingguang immediately realized that he couldn't escape. He was not sure about the situation outside the window of the second bedroom on the other side. Walking out of the master bedroom at this time, he would inevitably be noticed by the two monsters upstairs. At that time, it was likely a passive situation of a wolf in front and a tiger behind. That's just a gamble on one's luck. The safest way to deal with the current plan is to ambush in secret and see if we can kill the two monsters in one fell swoop. If successful, his house can be in a safe state for a short period of time before other monsters detect it, allowing him enough time to prepare for escape and significantly improving his survival rate. Even if exposed, as long as he kills the two monsters as soon as possible, he still has a lot of escape options before the other monsters surround him. Is it a life and death battle? Zhang Qingguang took a deep breath and tightly grasped the Zhaoshan knife with both hands. He didn't expect that the first time he truly used this knife, the first time he faced a real life and death battle, would be in this situation. He leaned against the tightly closed door to the right, pressed his ears against the wall, and determined the position of the two monsters through external footsteps. The two footsteps, one in front and one behind, one close and one far, stopped first. Click. The sound of the door twisting and unlocking came, and a monster stopped in front of the second bedroom door. It pushed open the door and seemed to have walked into it to check, while another footstep slowly walked towards the door of the master bedroom where he was located. Dada. The heavy footsteps stopped, and the monster stopped in front of the master bedroom door, only separated by a wall. Zhang Qingguang held his breath and waited for the monster to push open the door and enter the room. He took the opportunity to strike and cut off the opponent's head with a single blow. Click. The door handle was gently twisted, and the faint sound was so chilling that if it were an ordinary person, the whole body would probably be covered in sweat and hair, and even the heartbeat would stop briefly. But unfortunately, at this most dangerous moment, Zhang Qingguang's body was no longer so tense. His mind was highly focused, and the surface of his skin began to turn slightly red. At this moment, he seemed not to be in the room, but under the scorching sun. The scorching temperature of the sun made his blood boil all over, giving him a burning sensation. His body was extremely excited, and adrenaline was rapidly secreted. His eyes were half closed and half open, but he still couldn't hide the light in his eyes. This is not a technique in the Mingguang Jui Dao, but a trick he learned during his training of chopping the sun and sweating profusely in the morning. When he concentrates and reminisces about his experience of training on the split day, his qi and blood will accelerate, as if returning to the time of training. His body and nerves can enter their optimal state in a short period of time without the need for prolonged warm-up. He named this trick Echo. Just as the door lock was unlocked. Bang! The door was suddenly pushed open, slamming heavily against the wall, making a heart-stopping roar. Zhang Qingguang tightened his heart-shaped knife and prepared to unleash his power for a surprise attack, but something unexpected happened. The expected monster's direct entry into the room did not happen. Instead, a rough-skinned black-purple arm holding a bone-long knife plunged into the door, stabbing along the edge of the door and towards Zhang Qingguang's right shoulder, who was now leaning against the door. Oh no! Zhang Qingguang was suddenly startled in his heart, suspecting that he had been discovered by the other party. He quickly moved his steps, took a half-step back, and narrowly avoided the piercing bone knife. As he retreated, the movement was immediately detected by the monsters outside. The rough hand holding the knife paused slightly, and then immediately reacted, about to retract. This subtle change was captured by Zhang Qingguang. No, the other party didn't notice me. This is just a probe. These damn things can even probe the door. In an instant, Zhang Qingguang's attention was highly focused, his brain was running at high speed, and he understood everything. The ambush did not succeed, but instead was probed to one's own position by the other. The two monsters were on guard, and if they attacked together, one would be more or less unlucky. At this moment, the situation plummeted to the bottom, and his situation was extremely dangerous. Hands on. At a critical moment, fortunately, he has been well trained in various knife techniques and power methods, and has already become familiar with them. He has integrated them into daily movements. Even if he suddenly encounters a blow and retreats, he still hasn't lost his focus and momentum. This is the so-called 100 refinements realm in military strikes, where various moves and techniques are combined. Even in emergency situations, they will subconsciously maintain their best posture and respond to crises. In ancient times, this was the elite of 100 battles who could immediately counterattack even when encountering an ambush. To achieve this level, it often requires a long period of skill training, or multiple life and death battles, and the practice of hovering on the brink of death. Zhang Qingguang has been practicing swordsmanship for 10 years, and it was only a few years ago that he developed this ability. During the process of stepping back, the long knife had already subconsciously raised above the head, and both hands were tightly gripping the handle. The muscles on both arms, shoulders, and waist suddenly tightened, and even veins exploded on both arms, concentrating all the strength in one place. Wave a knife. Slash down. Step back and chop. Brush. The heart-shaped knife flashed a cold silver light in the air. The monster's reaction was quick, and when it noticed movement coming from the room, it suddenly withdrew its hand, but Zhang Qingguang's sword fell equally quickly. At the moment when the monster's arm was about to fully retract, the heart-shaped sword fell sharply and struck the monster's hand, which had not yet fully retracted. Puff. A muffled sound came out, and although the Zhaoshan knife had never experienced actual combat, fortunately its craftsmanship was excellent, coupled with Zhang Qingguang's constant polishing and care, it was extremely sharp. The monster's rough skin, like cowhide, was instantly cut open, its muscles tensed every inch, and in the end, the bones of its hands were also cut off. Black-purple liquid splashed out from its wound. Roar. The monster outside the door instinctively let out a painful howl, with half of its palm hanging on its arm and its bone knife unable to grip it, falling to the ground. It's now. Zhang Qingguang took a step back and injured his opponent without stopping at all. He knew very well that the opponent still had helpers and had to take advantage of his illness to kill him. He took a sudden step out and flashed to the door. At that moment, he finally saw the full face of the monster. His body, which was even taller than him, was extremely oppressive, and his face, as fierce as a demon, appeared even more twisted due to the severed palm. At this moment, the monster was retreating towards the rear, seemingly wanting to merge with its companions. But Zhang Qingguang cannot give it this opportunity. Step up, upper body. Power starts from the feet and runs upwards. Grasping the handle tightly with both palms, as I step up the body, my whole body concentrates its strength on one point. The total length of the 180 centimeters long sword shines on my heart, and I look for a book garden www.zhaozhuyuan.com to stab it like a long spear. Ming Chang Dao combines the advantages of both a sword and a spear, capable of both chopping and assassination. Spike. Zhang Qingguang's series of reactions and explosions were incredibly decisive. The monster's reaction was not slow, and he extended his other hand to block it, but was stabbed directly into its chest with a knife and the palm. The blade had not penetrated nearly 1/3, but Zhang Qingguang still felt uneasy. The opponent did not know what monster it was, and the vital points of his body were not consistent with those of humans. Therefore, without hesitation, he suddenly swung his arms downwards with force. Puzzy. A muffled sound came, and the monster was cut open from the chest to the abdomen by a long knife. In the moment Zhang Qingguang drew the knife, a large amount of disgusting black-purple liquid burst out, and the monster seemed to have lost its resistance and could no longer scream in pain. Its body softened and collapsed on the ground. Success. Zhang Qingguang's heart was beating violently, but he knew that the matter was far from over. His gaze turned to the other side of the corridor. 10 meters away from him, another black-purple monster stepped out of the second bedroom door and glanced at its companions on the ground. From his perspective, the opponent's ferocious face was filled with a terrifying murderous intent. This time, Zhang Qingguang has no way out. He must fight quickly and make a quick decision, otherwise this monster will make even greater noise and attract surrounding monsters to besiege him, and he will undoubtedly die. Zheng. The heart-shaped knife trembled lightly, and Zhang Qingguang stood up the long sword. Then, without stopping for a moment, he suddenly stepped forward and charged towards the monster. This time, he took the initiative to attack. And that monster, with a bloodthirsty ferocity on its face, raised its bony long sword in its hand and charged towards Zhang Qingguang with the same fierce expression. Inside the corridor, we meet on a narrow path. Chapter 5. Mutation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 2 steps. Zhang Qingguang took 2 steps and the monster had already entered his attack range. The shape of the heart-taking blade in his hand was already extremely long, and with his own height and arm length, even monsters holding bone knives could not compare with it. In terms of distance, he had already taken an advantage. The long sword was raised high, and both arms and waist and back exerted force simultaneously. The abdominal cavity bulged and suddenly sank, causing the force between the waist and abdomen to fully erupt. At this moment, the sunlight from the outside is shining, and the heart-shining blade suddenly swings down, reflecting the sunlight like a mirror, as if it really gives people a feeling of cutting open the sunlight. The long blade, weighing almost twice as much as the normal shape of the Ming long blade, was heavily slashed by Zhang Qingguang's powerful physique. However, Zhang Qingguang's speed was fast, and the monster's reaction was also not slow, with a hint of contempt in its eyes. It's just a mere human. Since its arrival, it has killed many humans, and those guys are even weaker than the livestock they remember. At least livestock will struggle and even attack, and these guys will only scream and tremble. A large part of them will not even be able to escape. In fear and shock, they will only fall on the ground and wait for slaughter. They are just pigs waiting to be slaughtered. Although the person in front of them injured his companion, it was just that foolish person who was carelessly attacked. Faced with Zhang Qingguang's slashing, the monster refused to give in and stepped up, suddenly lifting its own bone knife and blocking it upwards. Dang! The weapons of both sides collided heavily, and an unexpected strong impact force quickly transmitted along the monster's arms. Its thick and strong arms shook violently, and the bones inside its body felt a tingling sensation. That blow didn't seem like a slash, it was more like a heavy hammer falling. What is the concept of the total weight of the Zhaoshan knife, which is 10 pounds and 7 taels? Compared to ancient romance novels, the terrifying weapon weight of the fierce general, which often weighs hundreds of pounds, is naturally not worth mentioning. But the reality is that there are very few combat weapons that weigh more than 3 kilograms. Just in terms of weight, the heart-taking knife is even heavier than a typical two-handed war hammer. Driven by Zhang Qinguang's strong arm strength and slaying inertia, the impact force is truly terrifying. The human in front of me seems different from other humans. On the other side, Zhang Qinguang also felt uncomfortable. Under the strong impact of the reaction force, he felt his organs shaking and his gums tingling. He slashed with all his might and strength, but was unexpectedly blocked by the monster's frontal block. It should be noted that in general, when facing this kind of full-force slashing, one uses side dodge and deflecting the opponent's attack to avoid the sharpness. After all, no matter how strong a person's arms and wrists are, it is difficult to withstand the inertial impact of falling and swinging. This indicates that the physical fitness of these monsters is extremely powerful and terrifying. If it doesn't work once, then come back. Zhang Qinguang gritted his teeth and engaged in a life-and-death battle for the first time. Under the extremely tense nerves and excessive adrenaline stimulation, he ignored the use of techniques and chose the simplest and most brutal coping method at this moment. His arms tightened to the extreme, forcefully suppressing the vibration that made his bones tingle and his internal organs roll. He can't afford to procrastinate and must resolve the other party as soon as possible before making any bigger noise. Brush. 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 Step forward. Step forward. Step forward. Slash. 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 Zhang Qinguang's mouth erupted with a suppressed low roar, and he swung his sword to unleash a series of slashes, hitting the monster's bone sword 3 times in a row. Sweat splatters with the impact, and blood boils in the impact. The strong shock caused the sturdy monster to retreat repeatedly, its thick arms trembling incessantly, and a breath held in its chest, making it unable to even shout. The monster lost its advantage in a moment of underestimate and fell completely into the disadvantageous position. The human in front of it was incredibly fierce, and under continuous collisions, it unexpectedly felt an inexplicable fear in its heart. Especially at this moment, it gazed into the other person's eyes, which were bright and terrifying, piercing its soul, so hot that it seemed to melt its consciousness, causing the fear in its heart to ultimately become a complete shock. Golden eyes capture enemy. The continuous attacks gave the monster a sense of fear, and its momentum was intimidated by Zhang Qinguang. Eyes are the windows of the soul, and on the battlefield of life and death, vision is the manifestation of momentum. Under the dual vibrations of body and mind, the monster's posture finally showed flaws and stagnation. As it subconsciously continued to block, Zhang Qinguang suddenly changed his moves. He stepped a little and thrust towards the right side towards the monster's back. At this moment, his forehand sword turned into a backhand sword, his arms twisted around his waist, and his long sword cut towards the monster's abdomen. Progressive leaving hands and pulling knives. Sting. His figure flashed past the monster in an instant, and with the power of his body thrusting and twisting, his backhand heart-shaped sword suddenly slashed through the opponent's abdomen, which had been exposed due to misjudgment of the move. Even the rough skin of a cowhide cannot withstand such a sharp slash, and the monster is suddenly ripped open, with black blood and foul-smelling internal organs bursting out. Roar. The monster let out a deep cry of pain, and its entire body instinctively arched due to the pain. And Zhang Qinguang, who made progress behind the monster, kept moving for a moment before suddenly stopping. He stepped back, his eyes flickering with ferocity, and his heart-shining sword was raised high. At this moment, the tall monster is crawling at his feet. Hand up, knife down. Slash. The heart-shaped sword flashed a ray of light in the air, accurately striking the monster's neck. Puff. Purple liquid burst out and splashed half of the hallway, causing the monster's body to fall to the ground. After a few convulsions, there was no further movement. Breath. Breath. Zhang Qinguang's chest heaved violently, and his skin exuded a light red color, as if he had just finished a sauna. His arms were so numb that they hardly belonged to him, and his organs surged. Even so, he felt some wetness under his nose, as if excessive force had caused the capillaries to rupture, causing him to bleed from the nose. Just now, from ambushing in the room to slaying monsters in the hallway, it took no more than 15 seconds, but at this moment, Zhang Qinguang felt as if he had exhausted all his strength in his body. The high concentration of mind, the excessive stimulation of body hormones during life and death, and the high tightness of muscles are extremely frightening for physical exertion. Is this the real life and death battle? However, before Zhang Qinguang could savor it, a strange change suddenly occurred. A green fluorescence suddenly appeared from the rolling head of the monster, and before Zhang Qinguang could react, it suddenly collided with his body. What thing? Zhang Qinguang was startled in his heart, but before he could stop it, the fluorescence merged into his body. Hot. He felt his body temperature rapidly rise, his blood seeming to boil, his skin turned red, and his internal organs seemed to be on fire. In an instant, he couldn't support himself and knelt down on one knee on the ground. Ouch! He suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and sprayed it on the heart-shaped knife in front of him, dyeing the cold flashing blade red. Then, blood began to overflow from the corners of his mouth and nostrils, making him look incredibly permeable. He felt an inexplicable force colliding and destroying within him, and his body, or rather the human body, could not bear that force at all. Zhang Qinguang felt that his consciousness was beginning to blur. He knew that if it continued like this, he would probably die here. What the hell are these things? He just solved the life and death crisis. Get out. My body. Zhang Qinguang roared in a low voice, with a fierce expression on his face. It was unclear whether his strong will had played a role, and that force seemed to have found another outlet. That was the heart-shaped knife that had stained his blood at this moment. Green fluorescence flowed out of Zhang Qinguang's palm and wrapped the Zhaoshan knife. The blade shook slightly, and then the fluorescence converged and disappeared completely into the blade. At this moment, Zhang Qinguang finally felt the strange movement inside his body completely disappear. He regained his composure, knelt on the ground to breathe for nearly 10 seconds, wiped the blood from the corners of his mouth and under his nose, and then slowly stood up again. What exactly happened just now? Chapter 6. Protective Equipment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhang Qinguang had a bewildered expression on his face. He was not sure what had happened just now. He felt that the heart-shaped knife in his hand seemed to have changed a bit from before, with some subtle interactions between them, but it seemed to be just an illusion. Another thing is that although he felt like his body was about to explode and die at any moment, bleeding a lot, he doesn't seem to have suffered much damage now. However, apart from that, he also did not feel any signs of strengthening in his body. This is not very reasonable. No physical enhancement. No physical enhancement. It's completely different from the plot in the novel. A bitter smile appeared on Zhang Qinguang's face. In the novel, the end of the world falls, and after killing monsters, one's body can be strengthened and even awaken extraordinary abilities, ushering in a new era of great evolution. But now, he killed the monster. Not only did his body not receive any reinforcement, but he even almost took his life. However, there was no time for him to carefully explore the changes in the current situation. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse that the monster that had been ambushed and pierced through his chest and abdomen by him had not yet fully died. It was struggling to crawl towards the window, dragging out black and purple bloodstains on the ground. The previous attack should have caused damage to its vocal system, making it unable to shout loudly. At this point, this guy seems to be trying to climb to the window and call out his companions. Zhang Qinguang was also slightly surprised when he saw this. The vitality of these ghosts was amazing. He immediately took 3 or 2 steps forward with a heart-shining knife and suddenly stabbed the back of the opponent's neck. Puzzy. The tip of the knife pierced through its neck, and Zhang Qingguang twisted the long knife, stirring its neck into a pulp. The monster suddenly lost its movement and collapsed completely on the ground. At the next moment, a green fluorescence burst out of his head and collided with Zhang Qingguang's body again. Still coming. The feeling of being burned in the furnace once again made Zhang Qingguang feel as if his body was about to burst. However, with his previous experience, he quickly attempted to guide with his will, and the fluorescent light unexpectedly surged out of his body, injecting into the heart-shaped knife in his hand, and was quickly completely absorbed by the blade. It's really amazing. Zhang Qingguang felt his physical condition and it seemed that there was no significant change. As for the changes in the heart-taking knife, he is currently not quite sure. Without much hesitation, he came short to the window of the master bedroom balcony and looked out. His fight with the two monsters was brief, and there was not much commotion. In addition, the screams from the surrounding neighborhoods and the sound of searching for houses masked the commotion, so it has not yet caught the attention of the monsters outside. We must take advantage of this opportunity to be prepared for response. Zhang Qingguang immediately turned around, and his first reaction was to find his phone to check. He wanted to contact the outside world, but found that his phone had run out of battery and automatically turned off. He immediately went to the bedroom to turn on his computer, but there was still no response. Quickly, he was surprised to find that the entire power system of the house had malfunctioned, and he was unable to communicate with the outside world. Combining the appearance of the monster, the miserable situation outside, and the green fluorescence that appeared after killing the monster, he had a bad feeling in his heart. This time, it's probably not just a matter of their neighborhood experiencing changes. Be prepared for the worst. With this in mind, he immediately returned to the quiet room where the door was knocked open, took out the scabbard of the heart-shaped knife, as well as the cloth and knife oil placed next to the knife holder. At this moment, he didn't have time to carefully take care of the heart-taking knife. He just picked up a cloth and wiped away his own blood stains and the monster's black-purple body fluids on the long knife. Subsequently, he noticed several obvious notches on the edge of the Zhaoshan knife, and a look of heartache appeared on his face. The swords in novels and movies can be swung and slashed at will, killing dozens or hundreds of monsters without any damage, still sharp as before. However, in reality, there is no such divine weapon. Even if forged with modern technology, the blade is not easy to break, but the blade is still very vulnerable to damage. The powerful slashing and collision just now have caused damage to the blade of the Zhaoshan knife. Although it will not affect its use temporarily, this accumulation of damage will inevitably lead to the sword being scrapped one day. It seems that in the future battles, we should pay attention to the protection of weapons. This battle is still a bit reckless. Zhang Qingguang secretly thought to himself that this was his first life and death battle, and under his nervousness, he only focused on working hard to achieve miracles. In fact, looking back now, there should have been a better way to kill the opponent at that time. At the same time, after the blade was completely cleaned, he finally discovered some strange changes in the heart-taking knife. On the originally smooth and mirror-like blade, a dark red spot appeared unexpectedly, as if blood had soaked into the blade, appearing somewhat abrupt and strange. Zhang Qingguang tried several times but couldn't wipe it off, confirming that it had integrated with the blade. Is it related to the two green fluorescents injected into the heart-shining knife just now? Zhang Qingguang guessed in his heart, but time was tight at this moment. After wiping the blade, he immediately put it into the scabbard. Then he came to the staircase with a short stature and looked towards the lobby on the first floor. At this moment, the first floor gate was deformed and collapsed on the ground, causing chaos in the hall. It was clearly a destructive search by two monsters. Zhang Qingguang observed for a while and found no signs of other monsters passing by or exploring outside the building. He took a deep breath, placed the heart-taking knife aside, and ran empty-handed towards the lobby on the first floor. His goal is to drop the entire set of weapon protection equipment near the living room combat area. Zhang Qingguang was very fast and didn't make too much noise. He picked up the protective gear on the ground, picked up the changesUnknown calligraphy post that had fallen to the ground on the side, confirmed that there were no monsters outside the door, and immediately ran back upstairs, starting to put on the protective gear as quickly as possible. The upper body of the protective gear is the Sirius 2.0 pure black swordsmanship jacket, made of stab-resistant fabric. The jacket has built-in protective inserts on the forearms, shoulders, chest, and back, with multiple insert designs on the shoulders, chest, and back, ensuring flexibility in body bending while providing excellent protection. The jacket is equipped with strong Velcro on the outside, and you can find a polymer nail patch on Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com to further enhance protection. Due to Zhang Qingguang's large body size, the swordsmanship jacket was tailor-made and the size was also relatively large. Therefore, with the addition of external armor, the weight of the entire jacket reached 2.5 kilograms. The lower body of the protective gear is a sea monster soldier strike pants, with a tight leg design of a cropped pants. It is also made of pure black stab-resistant fabric, and is equipped with built-in protective inserts on the inner, outer, and side waist of the thighs. Although this set of lightweight protective equipment is only used for training non-bladed weapons on weekdays, its protective power cannot block bullet attacks, and it is unknown how much protection it has for truly sharp blades. Moreover, its shock-absorbing effect is average. Even if the protective inserts cannot be broken between 1 or 2 blade impacts, the force shock is enough to cause significant damage. However, as long as it can withstand 1 or 2 bleeding injuries, it can also be called a life-saving tool. If he had this set of protective gear just now, even if he was blocked in the stairwell by 2 monsters, he would have a great chance of fighting back. Having armor and not having armor, survival rate is 2 different concepts. Therefore, even if the weight is increased for nothing, it will have a certain impact on the body's flexibility. Zhang Qingguang still decided to wear this thing. He thinks that with his physical strength, it shouldn't be a problem to run around wearing this protective gear. Zhang Qingguang quickly put on his protective gear completely without gloves, fearing that it would affect his hand flexibility. He also did not wear a protective helmet, as it would greatly affect his visibility and be detrimental to the current situation. At this moment, his tall body was covered with pure black protective gear, which was connected to a black matte protective plate with Velcro. He was wearing black tactical shoes under his feet, with shin armor hanging from his black stockings on his shin bones. He held a heart-shaped knife that was wrapped in a scabbard in his hand. From his appearance, he appears like an ancient warrior wearing armor, appearing in the real world. Chapter 7. Hiding. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After putting on his protective gear, Zhang Qingguang found a black waste bag from the bedroom, put his phone, knife oil, a bottle of water, and a few snacks into the bag, and then picked up the backpack. After finishing all of this, he rolled up the changesUnknown calligraphy sheet and put it in a wooden box, hiding it under the bed. If there was a chance, he would take it back. Master, your old man's spirit in heaven blesses me to be safe and sound. Zhang Qingguang muttered to himself in a low voice, and after finishing all of this, he began to get close to the window of his second bedroom to observe the external situation. The master bedroom window is facing towards the interior of the community, while the secondary bedroom window is facing towards the outside block. However, what made Zhang Qingguang feel cold was that he could also see the figures of many monsters on the streets outside. Moreover, the scenery on the streets needs to be more immersive. The vehicle caught fire in all directions on the road, with mottled bloodstains visible everywhere. Desperate screams could be heard from a large supermarket and office building in the distance. Zhang Qingguang even saw a figure falling from the high-rise of the office building, landing heavily on the ground, splattering blood and flying bones and flesh. The whole world seems to have turned into a Shura hell. Later, his gaze caught a glimpse of a corner of the sky, and he was completely stunned. In the sky, there is a dark and deep crack, which seems to be the source of all mutations. This is a phenomenon completely beyond his cognition. won't the entire city fall, will it? It's even possible that the whole world is already filled with monsters. Zhang Qinguang took a deep breath and suppressed this crazy and desperate thought, forcing himself to focus on the escape plan in front of him. There are monsters everywhere, and now in broad daylight, it's difficult to hide their bodies. At this time, if they run out randomly, the probability of being discovered and besieged is extremely high. The best time for him to escape and leave is only when the sky is dark and he can rely on the cover of night. However, there are at least 10 hours left until nightfall, and it is necessary to first find a safe place to hide. Staying in place is definitely not enough. The deaths of 2 monsters will inevitably attract other monsters, and the streets are also unsafe. The large open space is very easy to pay attention to, and most importantly, he has no idea which buildings are currently searching for monsters, and it is impossible to plan a safe escape route. The safest option is to hide within this community. He thought of the houses that had been searched by monsters. As the saying goes, black under the lights, these most dangerous places happen to be safer at this time. Within the Golden Scales community, find a way to enter the house that the monster has thoroughly searched. Zhang Qinguang made a decision in his heart. He is very familiar with the terrain of the golden-scaled garden, and with the help of houses, he can also observe the movements of monsters well, avoiding contact that is beyond his defense. His first goal was the house of the family where he saw a little boy brutally killed by a monster not long ago and his young mother taken away by the monster. Arriving at the balcony of the master bedroom, Zhang Qinguang observed for a while and confirmed that there was no movement in the room. He took a deep breath and began to wait for the opportunity. The distance between the 2 houses is about 20 meters, and the open balcony on the 2nd floor of the master bedroom is about 6 meters above the ground. And Zhang Qinguang himself bears a weight of about 10 kilograms. Complete all actions within 15 seconds. Zhang Qinguang made an estimate and tied the Zhaoshan sword with a swordsmanship belt behind him. He began to concentrate his energy, and his body temperature gradually increased, entering an active state to ensure that the movement of all joints in his body would not be delayed. Soon, he waited for the opportunity. Within the surrounding field of view, there are no monsters appearing. Right now. He suddenly jumped out of the balcony, not directly jumping down, but twisting his body, facing the wall. At the moment of falling, he grabbed the edge of the windowsill with strong arm and grip strength, half hanging on the wall, briefly freezing his body while minimizing his own falling height. At the original height of 6 meters, the actual falling height is only about 3 meters. Even an ordinary person can withstand the impact of jumping from this height with preparation. Moreover, Zhang Qinguang's physical fitness is far superior to that of ordinary people. He let go of his hands and landed on the ground. When he landed, he squatted slightly with both knees and leaned on the ground with one hand, trying to reduce the impact force and the movement caused by the landing as much as possible. The external inserts on his swordsmanship jacket were tightly glued with Velcro, and generally, even violent movements would not make a clanging collision sound. At this time, under Zhang Qinguang's unloading action, the sound emitted was completely within an acceptable range. After landing, Zhang Qinguang did not stop at all. Start. His legs were suddenly full of energy, his body was like an arrow, and he quickly rushed towards the 2-story villa across from him. Over the years, all of Zhang Qinguang's training has been benchmarking against actual combat. In actual combat, not only the strength and skills of the knife technique, but also the changes in footwork and overall coordination are of utmost importance. In order to be closer to actual combat, in addition to the footwork of Mingguang knife technique itself, he has also added corresponding running and jumping training to himself, which can be said to be in use now. At this point, this powerful agility played a crucial role. Despite his tall stature, even ordinary parkour players were not as agile as him. He was extremely fast, and in less than 5 seconds, he had already arrived at the opposite villa downstairs. Stepping up, grasping the bulge of the European relief on the exterior wall, he climbed onto the 6-meter-high balcony on the second floor in less than 5 seconds, and entered the room from the broken glass French window. After entering the room, he immediately hid in the corner beside the French window and watched the outside world carefully. He was sure that the monster had not noticed his action just now. Then he was slightly relieved and looked into the room. This is the master bedroom of the house, and the originally warm decorations in the room are now in chaos. A family photo hanging on the bedside falls to the ground, and the frame glass is broken. In the photo, the male and female hosts have gentle faces, holding a little boy with a bright smile together. Upon seeing this scene, Zhang Qingguang recalled the scene he had just seen and took a deep breath at the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com. What's going on in this world? He entered the house from the master bedroom and saw bloodstains remaining in the hallway, but did not see the body of the male owner. There was not much stopping, and this house was too close to his house. Once the bodies of 2 monsters in his house were found, the monsters would inevitably search the surrounding area, which is not safe at this time. He observed the movements of external monsters through various windows of the house, planned escape routes, and within more than 10 minutes, found the opportunity to change 3 villas in a row. Finally, he went from the southeast corner of the community to a villa facing the street in the northwest corner and hid. At this moment, he vaguely sensed that there seemed to be waves of commotion coming from the direction of room A302. It seems that the 2 monsters I killed have been discovered, and I don't know if those ghosts will thoroughly search the entire community. Zhang Qingguang's expression was severe, and his heart secretly lifted up. However, he was not very panicked either, and there was a reason why he chose this villa as his final destination. This villa faces the street to the north, and there is a small park 100 meters away. The park has good greenery, a small forest area, and many hiding places. If those ghosts really search the entire community, he can also find a way to adventure and leave the community, rush into the park as soon as possible, and use the terrain to deal with the other party, which can be considered as a way out. The movement in the southeast direction lasted for about 5 minutes. The monster seemed to have thoroughly searched room A302 and then searched several other villas around it. After not finding his presence, it gave up searching and did not continue to expand its scope. Seeing this, Zhang Qingguang took a deep breath and finally relaxed slightly. The initial danger should have been safely overcome. Chapter 8. Changes in the Heart-Taking Knife. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The situation is temporarily safe, and Zhang Qingguang finally has the energy to analyze the current situation and the previous encounter. Those monsters have extremely strong physical fitness and can cause all-round crushing of the average human adult male in terms of physical ability. They have a certain level of intelligence and can act collectively, but their intelligence should not be very high. Their combat skills can only be considered ordinary, otherwise I would not be able to kill 2 monsters without making too much noise. If an individual with extremely high intelligence, their first reaction when the first monster is seriously injured should be to call out their companions. Extremely strong physical fitness, able to move in groups but not with outstanding intelligence, bloodthirsty nature may suppress rationality during battles, with combat skills but not considered proficient. However, compared to the zombie apocalyptic crisis in novels and movies, having intelligence alone is already tricky enough. The monster's probing behavior just now almost put me in a desperate situation. Zhang Qingguang carefully recalled the details of the previous battle, summarized the characteristics of the monster, and the missing points during the battle. The previous battle was ultimately his first life and death battle, and his mental state was too tense, resulting in his strength not being fully utilized. If he had to do it again, in a 1-on-1 situation, he should have been able to kill monsters more easily. Moreover, now he is wearing protective gear and is confident of winning even in the face of 3 monster attacks. Those ghosts have a terrifying physique and appearance, but they are still flesh and blood, and are not invincible. If there are thermal weapons, they are even more vulnerable. But why is there still no sign of any response from state violence agencies so far? Is it because the incident occurred suddenly and all parties have not yet reacted, or is it because the army is already on the road and it will take some time to suppress the suddenly appearing monsters? Or has all parties around the world fallen? Thinking of this, he remembered the inexplicable huge crack in the sky he had seen before, the phone that was suddenly unable to open despite being fully charged, the widespread disappearance of electricity, and the cars on the street that broke down. Although the physical fitness of these monsters is exaggerated, they only hold primitive melee weapons. Even if they drive to collide, if they don't drive to escape, the city won't be as miserable as it is today, right? There must have been some unknown changes that he didn't know about. At this moment, Zhang Qingguang's heart moved and he began to search through the room. The owner of this villa should be an elderly couple, and the interior decoration adopts a Chinese retro style. However, it is probably because it has not been renovated for too long, and the various decorations appear very old, giving people a feeling of twilight. The male host should be an old smoker. Zhang Qingguang searched in the bedroom and found several cigarettes and a brand new box of lighters. He took out a new lighter and tried to ignite it. There was no response at all, and even the flint did not show any obvious sparks splashing out. Zhang Qingguang continued to adjust the number of ignition positions to the maximum. The original new lighter was ignited at this position, and the flames could instantly rise more than 10 centimeters in height. However, after several consecutive ignition attempts, Zhang Qingguang barely observed a faint flicker of light that quickly disappeared completely. He continued to take out other lighters and tried to light them one by one, but the results were all the same. He can be certain that these lighters are all intact and undamaged. Can't you really be so damn? Zhang Qingguang remained silent for a moment. He suddenly understood why there were broken-down vehicles everywhere on the street, and why these monsters could roam freely in the city with their mortal bodies and cold weapons, killing indiscriminately. All human technological achievements must rely on the help of various energy sources to be effective, otherwise those mechanical giants that can move mountains and fill the sea are just a pile of scrap iron. Without energy, the level of human civilization will experience an unimaginable regression. All the technologies and tools that were once relied on have failed. If that monster were to spread all over the world and hunt humans at this moment, the entire human society could potentially fall. Doomsday is coming, a chaos. Does the efficiency of only butane sharply decrease, or is it the same for all fuels? If the efficiency of gunpowder also decreases significantly, the power of hot weapons will also be greatly weakened, and they may not even be able to exert the killing power of crossbows and cold weapons. Will electricity be affected? Currently, I don't seem to feel any significant changes in physical rules. Gravity still exists, and wind and hydro power should also be present. Even if fuel cannot be used for power generation, it is still possible to use wind, tidal, and even solar power. However, it seems that the electricity supply in Guangjiang City comes from hydroelectric power plants, but now there is still a power outage throughout the city. What is going on? Zhang Qingguang's mind is a bit confused. He only has a bachelor's degree and studied the history department, which is not very useful in humanities. After graduation, he has also relied on operating self-media for a living. He cannot be said to be completely ignorant of the various principles of science and engineering, but can only be said to have a partial understanding. He didn't know to what extent this unknown change in energy had already involved certain fundamental principles that humans once believed to be true. He only knows that perhaps he should be prepared for the worst. That is, the world has fallen and there will be no more rescue, he can only rely on his own strength to survive. Wait until it gets dark, if there are no signs of rescue coming by then. Maybe we really have to rely on ourselves. Zhang Qingguang's mood was very complex, and it was difficult to suppress a feeling of confusion. This morning, everything was still normal. The actual combat area of the military strike hall is about to be completed and will soon officially open. He also arranged for several friends to gather and practice together, but now it has become this situation. I don't know how those guys are doing now, have they survived? Zhang Qingguang quickly suppressed these thoughts. Those guys all had skills and were not flashy. They had deep practical skills, and as long as their luck was not too bad, their chances of survival were much higher than ordinary people. It took about a few minutes to calm his mind, and Zhang Qingguang knew he couldn't immerse himself in this despair. He needed to understand more about the changes in the world. Therefore, he took out his heart-shaped sword and slowly pulled out the scabbard of his long sword. Killed 2 monsters, absorbed 2 mysterious fluorescents, and the heart-taking blade seemed to have undergone some unknown changes. It had not been out of danger before, and time was urgent, so he had not had time to carefully examine and study. Now he can learn more about it. The blade emerged from the body, with a smooth and mirror-like surface. However, at this moment, there was a dark red mark about 2 to 3 centimeters long and wide in the front and middle section of the blade, as if blood had soaked into steel. At that time, green fluorescence entered my body, almost causing me to die. I spat out a lot of blood, as if it had sprayed on the dark red spots on the blade. That is to say, these things that have soaked into the blade are my own blood. Zhang Qingguang carefully recalled the various details before. He sat cross-legged, searching for the book garden www.zhaozuiyuan.com, his mind calm, and he placed the heart-shaped knife flat on his legs, concentrating on sensing. Not long after, he seemed to really have a vague connection with the heart-taking knife. However, this kind of connection is too subtle. If it weren't for his recent meditation skills, it would be difficult for an ordinary person to truly sense it. No, it's not like that. It's not Zhaoshan Dao, to be precise. What seems to be related to him is the small dark red mark on top of Zhaoshan Dao. That is an indescribable peculiar feeling. It seems that my blood really soaked into the blade, but let's not talk about the principle. What's the use of this? Zhang Qingguang is a bit confused. He did not feel any improvement in his physical fitness, and the unique connection in that small area was not enough to enhance his control over weapons. Continuing to kill monsters and absorb that green fluorescence, can we make the blood spot continue to expand? Perhaps after the blood spot expands to a certain extent, a different reaction may occur. As Zhang Qingguang pondered, a corner of his eye suddenly sensed some unusual changes on the blade. In the previous battle, due to his several powerful slashes and collisions, several small notches were made on the edge of the Zhaoshan knife, which made him feel very distressed at the time. However, now he found that the few notches on the blade were actually in the area covered by blood stains, and some black and red amber-like substances filled the notches almost perfectly. Wait. I remember very clearly before that when I discovered this blood spot, it didn't seem to be in the position of the blade opening. There was still some distance between the two, and it moved its position. Chapter 9. Blood Stains. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhang Qingguang continued to observe carefully. This black-red blood spot appears in the form of amber crystals, somewhat resembling scabs formed by biological wounds, but without the irregular protrusions of wound scabs, it is completely smooth. Zhang Qingguang flicked his fingers lightly, and the black and red material at the notch remained motionless, seemingly perfectly blending with the blade, rather than simply fitting in. Then, he pondered for a moment and found another solid wood hanger, pressing it against the blade filled with black and red material, and sliding it forcefully. Brush. The solid wood hanger was directly cut open by a sharp blade, leaving a deep gap that was incredibly smooth and even. The black and red substance on the blade remained undamaged, and Zhang Qingguang did not feel any sense of delay during the process. The blood spot perfectly fills the gap in the blade, keeping the sharpness of the long knife as before. Even Zhang Qingguang felt a sensation, as if the blade filled with black and red blood spots was sharper than the original steel blade. The area where the blade gap is filled seems to be sharper than before. Moreover, the location of this blood spot on the blade has clearly shifted. Zhang Qingguang whispered in his heart. Why can this thing fill the gap in the blade, and how does it move? What is the principle behind it? He began to carefully recall all his previous experiences. Finally, he locked in a detail. That was when he discovered that there was a gap in the heart-shaped knife. He seemed to feel very sorry and self-blame. By the way, the formation of this blood spot is related to green fluorescence. At that time, green fluorescence integrated into my body, almost causing my blood vessels to burst. At the last moment, I also shouted with intention, causing that force to leave my body and enter the heart-shining knife. Is thought the key to affecting this blood stain? At this point in his thinking, Zhang Qingguang was ready to try again. He focused once again, closed his eyes, and tried his best to sense the strange connection between himself and the blood spot, and sent out a strong thought to it. After nearly half an hour of exploration, he finally found some feelings. After spending about 5 minutes concentrating, when he opened his eyes again, his pupils suddenly shrank. The blood spot moved forward a few centimeters, leaving the location of the gap. Without the filling of the blood spot, the gap on the blade was once again revealed. I really moved. The idea that Zhang Qingguang just emitted was to make this blood spot move. Is this some kind of substance or an abstract energy? Zhang Qingguang stroked the blade without feeling anything unusual, but based on the previous test of the solid wood hanger, some thoughts came to his mind. Will the blade area covered by blood stains be sharper and more powerful than before? With this in mind, he continued to try, and it took him about an hour before finally successfully moving the blood stain to the tip of the heart-shaped knife. The entire blade was covered by the blood stain about 2 centimeters below. He also wanted to try to separate the blood spot from the blade and extend it alone, but found that it was impossible. The blood spot seemed to only move within the blade area and could not detach. At most, it could only fill the gaps that appeared within the blade area. At this point, some fine beads of sweat had already appeared on his forehead, and the mental exhaustion caused by prolonged high-intensity concentration could be described as enormous. He took a few deep breaths, calmed the surging qi and blood, stood up with a heart-shaped knife, and pressed the tip of the knife against the wardrobe door next to the bedroom, exerting a slight force. Puzzy. A faint muffled sound came, and the hardwood wardrobe door, at least 2 centimeters thick, was pierced directly by a blade covered in blood stains. After the tip of the knife penetrated, Zhang Qingguang clearly felt a slight sluggishness, indicating that the sharpness of the tip of the knife was indeed superior to other parts. After being covered by blood stains, Zhang Qingguang felt that there was no problem piercing some slightly weaker metal protective equipment. The area covered by blood stains is indeed much sharper than the original steel blade. Zhang Qingguang's eyes were bright and he had more ideas in his heart. Can the shape of the blood spot be significantly changed to become a long strip, covering a larger area of the blade? In this way, the sharpness of the Zhaoshan knife will be greatly improved. He continued to sit cross-legged and concentrate on trying. But this time he failed. No matter how much he injected his thoughts, he was unable to change the shape of the blood spot on a large scale, only able to slightly deform and move its position. After some operation, Zhang Qingguang was already sweating profusely, feeling even more exhausted than before when fighting against 2 monsters. Is it because my mind is too weak? After continuous experimentation and exploration, Zhang Qingguang vaguely understood the principles behind it. The area covered by blood stains can repair damage to the blade and enhance the strength of the blade itself, but it cannot exist alone from the blade area. The size and even intensity of blood spots should be related to the amount of mysterious green fluorescence absorbed, while manipulating blood spots seems to be related to one's own mental strength. But the idea itself is a rather mysterious and difficult to measure thing, and Zhang Qingguang is not very clear about the tricks behind it. After hesitating for a while, he still decided to let the blood spot stay at the tip of the knife. Although there were small wounds on the blade, it still did not affect its use. Since it was not possible to cover the blade extensively with the blood spot, covering the blade tip would be the most effective way to achieve the maximum effect. After all, besides chopping, Mingguang's saber also has many piercing techniques, and the sharpness of the blade can greatly enhance its killing power. If possible, try to kill as many monsters as possible and see if there will be any other changes after absorbing more fluorescence. Zhang Qingguang opened his waist bag, took a sip of mineral water, and carefully searched the villa. He found some canned goods, cookies, and some old-fashioned fruit candies, and began to eat to replenish his energy. After finishing his meal, Zhang Qingguang put a new bottle of mineral water and a handful of candies into his waist bag, and sat by the window holding the heart-shaped knife that had been placed in the scabbard, preparing to cultivate his spirit while being alert to external changes. The sun outside the window has gradually climbed to the top of the sky, and it seems that it is approaching noon. After autumn, the temperature is not very high. Otherwise, without air conditioning and fans, Zhang Qingguang, wearing protective gear, would probably be on the verge of heatstroke. Even now, he feels a bit hot and dry. Although the full-body protective gear claims to have a wide range of breathable designs, the effect is so touching that he has to unzip his swordsmanship jacket to dissipate heat and lower his body temperature. He is not sure about the specific time now. After the popularization of mobile phones, wall clocks have been basically eliminated. This household does have a wall clock, but it seems to be just a decoration. At this moment, Zhang Qingguang realized that humans rely too much on the convenience of technology. Once technology fails, many basic survival skills have been forgotten by people. Is there any hope for human survival without fire? The more he thinks, the more confused his heart becomes. He doesn't know where he should go or what he should do in the future in such a situation. The sun slowly swept across the sky gradually darkened, and in the end, the sunset completely disappeared, plunging the city into unprecedented darkness. There seems to be a layer of haze lingering in the sky, the moonlight is dim, and there are no lights in the city, nor any signs of rescue arrival. This city seems to have died. What Zhang Qingguang could perceive was only some faint screams still coming from afar. Suppressed like a nightmare, making people feel cold all over. From morning until now when it's dark, for at least 10 hours or more, it seems that there won't be any rescue coming. Zhang Qingguang abandoned his fantasies and prepared to accept reality and start fighting. In the afternoon, he came up with a rough plan. His ultimate goal is the Heian Resort in the northern suburbs of Guangjiang City. The reason for choosing that as the ultimate escape destination is firstly because this resort is located at the foot of Heian Mountain, close to the mountains and forests, and can escape into the mountains and forests in case of danger, making it easy to hide. Secondly, the area has just been developed and is sparsely populated, making it less likely to become the main target for monsters to attack. In addition, the most important reason is to search for the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com, which is that one of the 6 members in the Shangwu Bingshi management group has an industry nearby. This person is the one with the longest nickname and the most inconspicuous appearance in the group, known as the God Cha Kuang Dao Ao Shi Hong Lian Dezun. This gentleman's real name is Xie Qian, and his background is somewhat complicated. In summary, he is a wealthy second generation who is not short of money. However, unlike a normal wealthy second generation, this person is not fond of eating, drinking, gambling, or investing in entrepreneurship to prove himself. Instead, he is a full otaku, who loves anime and games. It is said that he was initially influenced by anime and spent a lot of money hiring a master with real skills. As a result, he has good talent. Although he always creates some unconventional and strange moves under the influence of anime, he is generally very hardworking and has strong practical abilities. For a period of time, this person was addicted to various apocalyptic zombie-themed movies, games, and anime. For this reason, he even spent money to build a safe house in the Heian Resort, hoarding a lot of equipment and supplies to survive in the apocalypse. Initially, Xie Qian proudly took a few people to visit the site, leaving a deep impression on everyone. Everyone also joked that if the end of the day came, they would definitely run there and hug his thigh, but now it's a prophecy. However, it is not viruses and zombies that have caused the world to fall, but purple skin monsters that have emerged from unknown sources. He felt that if the other few were still alive, they would make similar judgments and go there to meet. If some of the fundamental laws of this world really change, thermal weapons become completely ineffective, and the world falls, then these skilled people who come together will have the greatest chance of survival, and the other few will inevitably think of this. Most people would never have imagined that what they have practiced has become a hobby, and that one day it will truly come into play. Chapter 10. Selection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The location of Golden Scales Garden is in the southeast direction of Guangjiang City, with a straight line distance of over 50 kilometers from Heian Resort. If it were a different routine, even if it was walking, Zhang Qinguang was completely confident that he could complete the entire journey and reach his destination within half a day. But now the situation in the city is unclear, and he cannot rush to the destination with all his might, so he can only consider gradually advancing slowly and steadily. His first destination was the small park 100 meters north of his hiding place. There is dense vegetation that makes it easy to hide, and there are multiple exits connecting the surrounding neighborhoods, making it easy for him to inquire about the surrounding situation. If in danger, he can also entangle with monsters centered around the park. He looked out the window and saw the darkness in the city. For ordinary people, it was actually very dangerous to move forward in such an environment. However, after years of training, Zhang Qinguang's eyes were able to see things at night. Although they were still affected by the darkness, they had already surpassed the average person by a lot. To some extent, the night is his home ground. The surroundings were quiet, with no sign of the monster or any corresponding movement. It seemed that the area near the Golden Scale Garden was no longer the focus of the monster's search. Or, are the monsters in a resting state due to their limited mobility at night? I hope these ghosts don't have too strong nighttime mobility. After Zhang Qinguang confirmed that there were no hidden dangers around him, he quickly flipped down the ground from the windowsill, and then climbed over the relatively low wall of the community. He quickly rushed towards a smoking hotel across the street with an open door. After confirming its safety, he flashed into the darkness inside the store. At this moment, the smoke hotel was in chaos, with glass containers smashed into pieces, various high-end alcoholic beverages falling to the ground and shattering. The air was filled with a pungent smell of alcohol and a faint smell of blood. Zhang Qinguang carefully avoided the alcohol on the floor and did not delve deep into the store to avoid getting caught in the odor. He observed from the corner of the wall on one side of the store door and only continued to move after confirming that there was no danger. He advanced while hiding, and it took him nearly 5 minutes to enter the park at a distance of about 100 meters. Fortunately, there were no accidents, no monsters encountered, and I didn't know where the monsters that could be seen everywhere in the morning had gone. After entering the park, he went straight into the green forest area. In the past, the night in the forest area seemed very gloomy, except for some greasy couples who loved to burrow inside and do indescribable things. Ordinary people would not even enter it, but now this darkness and gloom have given Zhang Qinguang a great sense of security. In just half a day, humans have become street mice that can only rest assured by hiding in the darkness. Under the cover of the green area, first determine the situation inside the park, and then explore the surrounding areas and find a way forward with the park as the center. Zhang Qinguang's thinking was very clear, and he immediately explored within the park using the green area as a cover. He found multiple bloodstains in the park, but did not see any bodies. Zhang Qinguang also felt something was wrong. He had been wandering among multiple villas in the Golden Scale Garden before, and although he had seen many shocking bloodstains, he had also not seen a body. Along the way, it seemed that all the corpses had been taken away by the monsters. How did they handle the corpses? As food? Is it for other purposes? He continued to explore within the park, and suddenly, his pupils contracted violently. He was in a certain direction of the park when he saw a prominent firelight coming from the darkness. The lighter doesn't ignite, and all the chemical fuels seem to be malfunctioning. What is the light emitted and what is the fuel used? Zhang Qingguang took a deep breath and his body trembled slightly. The importance of fire to humanity is self-evident. Humanity went from barbarism to civilization because it ignited a flame and found a way to control it. Even in today's technological era, the essence of all energy is linked to flames. What exactly is it that reignited the flames? Although Zhang Qingguang was well aware that the location of the firelight had a high probability of being associated with those monsters, he still couldn't resist his curiosity. Under cover and see what's going on. Zhang Qingguang made a decision in his heart. Although it may be dangerous, he felt it was necessary to take this risk and perhaps even explore some important secrets. After all, flames are too important for human survival. He slowed down his pace, trying not to make any noise, while also being alert to potential ambushes and hidden sentries in the surrounding area, slowly approaching towards the direction of the fire coming from the forest area. Not long after, he arrived at the area where the firelight was located, which was a small square in the park. Beside the square, there was a small sports and fitness area with leisure and fitness equipment such as single and parallel bars, strollers, and waist wrenches. The flames came from the sports and fitness area of this square. Zhang Qingguang hid in the shadow of a nearby tree and could clearly see two sturdy purple skin monsters sitting on the ground, with a raging campfire burning in front of them. Surprisingly, the fuel for this bonfire is very simple, even primitive. That's one wood after another. These woods are nothing special, and they don't seem to be dry firewood. They look like they have just been cut off from the trees. On top of the bonfire stands a simple grill made of branches, with a long wooden string tied to a burnt human thigh, looking extremely eerie. Surprisingly, the material used to make a fire is wood. The efficacy of chemical fuels has sharply decreased and it is difficult to burn, but the simplest wood can still be ignited and seems to burn even more vigorously than before. What is the principle behind this? Zhang Qingguang's mind briefly froze. He opened his mouth, but before he could wait for him to think carefully, his gaze shifted and his attention was drawn to other things next to the campfire. A pile of bloody corpses were piled together, and it was estimated that there were nearly 10 at the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com, with extremely tragic deaths. Some have broken skulls, some have broken limbs, some have had their stomachs cut open, and a foul odor lingers around the square. People with slightly lower psychological resilience may have to have nightmares for several days when they see such scenes. What surprised Zhang Qingguang was that the bodies in the pile were mostly male at first glance. What made him even more concerned was that there were 3 women hanging on the single and parallel bars on the side. They were stripped naked, their hands tied to the top of the horizontal bar, their feet spread apart and tied to both ends of the bar. Their mouths were stuffed with cloth, and their hair was scattered haphazardly. Red fruit had bruises on its body, hanging there like pigs and sheep hanging on poles in a slaughterhouse waiting to be slaughtered. Through the scattered hair, Zhang Qingguang could see that all 3 women were still with their eyes open. Even though they were separated by a certain distance, he could still feel a strong sense of fear and despair in their eyes, their bodies still trembling slightly, and blood seeping from the bound limbs. They haven't died, they're still alive. Men will be directly killed, corpses will be collected by monsters, but women will be captured as alive as possible. Zhang Qingguang took a deep breath and remembered the young mother of the neighbor's house before. The little boy was directly thrown to death, but she was taken away by a monster and did not take her life on the spot. What exactly do these monsters want to do? Zhang Qingguang couldn't help but exert force as he held the heart-shining knife in his hand. Now, he faces a choice to leave and avoid this area to continue moving forward, ensuring his own safety. Or is it possible to find a way to attack and kill 2 monsters at the risk of not causing too much commotion, and save the living ones?